mummy's with the maggots now.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Well, hi there.
Hello, and welcome to Would You Die, the show where we're all gonna laugh at you. We're all gonna laugh at you. I'm Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And today we are continuing the best month of the year, Mommy March.
With Carrie.
Yeah, we're doing Carrie. I was gonna let you interject about like mommies and shit, but no, yeah, we're doing Carrie. We're doing 1976 Carrie. When we were thinking about doing, this month talking about our favorite horror mommies, this was never a doubt.
Absolutely not. I mean, yeah, Carrie's relationship with her mom is really the central focal point of the movie, and so we had to talk about it.
Hell yeah. Before we dive in, because I got so many thoughts about this movie. Before we dive in, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Austin?
I'm doing. We are okie dokie. We are recording this January 29th, 2025. And have you seen any cool horror lately?
Well, we recorded the last episode on January 27th. So since then, I have finished our week 3 movie, and that's it.
Very nice, very nice. I'm going to cheat. I want to see what I've watched recently. Because the last thing I watched was Carrie, and I don't want to say that. Oh, you know what? Over this past weekend, I saw The Terminator at my local theater. They were playing that. The Terminator rules.
Was that your first Terminator watch?
Fuck no.
I was going to say.
But it was playing at my MJR, so it was the first time I saw it on the big screen.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good one. I guess my most recent theater watch was A Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan biopic. And
I haven't seen it yet.
Phenomenal. So good. Really set me on a Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, Pete Seeger kick. So yeah, Timothée Chalamet, Timmy the boy, the kid, did a great job.
We're not calling him the kid now, are we? He's
the boy.
But we're not calling him the kid now, are we?
No, we don't have to call him the kid. I don't know why I said that.
But no, Timothée Chalamet's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's all right.
I didn't see Wonka, though.
I did not either.
Okay, but yeah, so that's what we've watched recently. Yeah, let's talk about Carrie.
Let's jump right in.
What's it about?
So Carrie, if you've never seen it, spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 1976, which will make it 50 next year?
2026, yep.
Yeah. Wow. Math. Crazy.
I only know that so quick because it's 2025 now. Jaws came out in 75, and I know it's Jaws' 50th anniversary.
Right.
So knowing Carrie came out in 76, I worked really hard, but I know that's one more.
Yeah. You did great math there.
Thank you.
So if you have not seen it, first of all, you should watch it before listening to this episode. None of this is going to make sense to you. But if it's been a while, Carrie is a 16-year-old young girl, goes to high school, pretty typical, but very heavily bullied. And she, at the very beginning of the movie, gets her period for the first time and is not treated very kindly by the rest of her classmates. And it turns out that she does not know what a period is, and that is all due to her very complex relationship with her very, very highly religious mother.
Margaret,
good old Maggie. So she endures a lot of torment at the school because of this, and then begins to also kind of have to struggle with the torment of the school, her religious mother, and her own telekinetic powers.
And then shenanigans. There's so much that happens in this movie. Teenagers kill pigs. Teenagers try on tuxes. This one teenager really doesn't want to wear a tux, and they make a big deal about it for 2 minutes, and it's actually kind of a really good scene.
They really do. I was also struck by that scene. I was like, this is so funny. Like, why this movie is, like, so ridiculous at times. Like, it's just very, like, randoms at some points.
But it all works.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Because as we'll come, I mean, spoiler alerts, this is a tragedy.
A horror movie?
Not all of them are tragedies.
That's fair.
But this one is like almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because Shakespeare being one of the greatest writers of all time, Carrie comes from one of the other greatest writers of all time, Stephen King.
True. They're on par. They're the same.
Did you know this is like Stephen King's first book?
I did, yeah.
Have you read the book?
I have, but it was a long time ago.
Okay. I own the book, but I haven't read it yet.
Is that part of that like trilogy that I bought you like 5 years ago, or is that?
That was 2 years ago.
Was that really 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Time moves so strangely
I
when
remember.
you're having fun.
But yeah, it was because that had Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining.
Right. I knew it had The Shining, but I couldn't remember what else was in it. I couldn't remember if it was like he has so many books.
That's like his first 3 horror, I think.
True.
I think.
I believe you're correct. If not, there's some of it.
Because I think The Stand's in there somewhere, but they were not putting The Stand in this collection.
No.
Carrie is really interesting because it has like a very unique spot in horror history for a multitude of reasons. Because it's commenting at a time where like teenagers are starting to... I think you see this a lot in 80s media, but it's starting here too. Teenagers are really losing respect for authority.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the 70s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, it's the rise of, like, a lot of rampant drug use amongst teenagers. I mean, like, and I'm not trying to be, like, we're talking weed. We're not necessarily talking a ton of other things, but we're also talking alcohol abuse, which is present very clearly in this movie. You know, it's...
a flagrant disrespect for authority as well.
Right.
That a lot of these characters display, and it's not exactly unearned because, as this movie I think clearly portrays, the systems and authority were letting down the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, we are talking about the decline not only of like the interest of religion in teenagers at this point. This is like, it's not quite satanic panic yet, but it's definitely a moral panic that the mother in this story, Margaret, feeds into, but also the decline of the traditional family unit. And I find something really fascinating in this story. A lot of the, something that struck me, not to get like too deep into the plot, because obviously we're going to get there, but one thing that I found really interesting is this is like, obviously, like I said, the start of the decline of the family unit. Margaret White is part of a non-traditional family. It's just her and her daughter.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the people she's proselytizing to, like Sue's family, are a dynamic nuclear family. Like mom, dad, Sue. I believe
there's
she
a
has
sibling
a
at the table.
Sibling, yeah. So it's really interesting that like the movie makes that commentary, but also does it through a person who's not part of a traditional family unit.
Right. And I think that plays into why Carrie is so ostracized. It's not just because teenagers are awful and the worst. If you're listening to this and you are a teenager, grow the fuck up. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's not just like, you know, because when you're a teenager, you're still figuring shit out. But also you've been around long enough to be like...
It's almost a hamartia of teenagers because they've been around long enough that they know some things, but because they know some things, they think they know everything.
Right. And there's still like, when you have all those like, what's it called? I want to say chemicals.
Hormones?
Thank you. Thank you. When you have all those hormones, just everything feels like it's life or death. Like, oh, I can't get a date to the prom. That feels like the most important thing in the world. Like, if you don't have a date to the prom, like, you will never live that down. And, like, the teenagers in this movie, they feel like that. But, unfortunately, a lot of them don't get to grow up.
Yeah.
So they don't know.
That's real. I think it's for sure an interesting framing that this movie has, because the majority of the framing happens through the interactions between the teenagers. There are obviously, we're going to be talking about the mother, we're going to be talking about Miss Collins, but a lot of the interactions and like the repercussions of what she goes through with her mother are through the eyes of the other teens. The mean girl and John Travolta, whose name's in the movie I have forgotten.
So the mean girl is played by, what I believe the actress's name is Nancy Allen, and she's in RoboCop.
What's her name in the movie, Austin?
I watched it yesterday. Her name is Mean Bully.
That's not her real name. She has a name. She must.
Miss Collins says it too.
I know, like several times.
I remember the gym teachers. Is it like
I'm looking at
Katie? Well, Norma's the one with the hat.
Yes. Which was a weird choice stylistically, but that's fine.
And that's PJ Souls. Mm-hmm. From Halloween.
Yes.
Totally. But, and I think John Travolta's character's name is Billy.
Hey, this is just a random me getting on the soapbox. I hate Google's new AI feature. It's always wrong. It just told me that the bully was Sue Snell. That's not who the bully is. That's not what I was looking for. Thank you.
Google's AI is really dumb.
AI is really dumb, but thank you.
Like, really dumb. For real.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm just thinking
Chris.
of Google Terminators.
It's
what?
Chris.
Oh, Chris?
Christine.
Christine.
Bully. No, Billy.
I told you.
I know you did. I'm just Chris
Oh, it was Chris.
and Billy.
I love when Miss Collins... Chris, get that gum out of your mouth. Where should I put it, Miss Collins? You can choke on it for all I care.
Here's my thing about Miss Collins. Do I love her? Absolute
Yeah.
icon. As a teacher, that's not... If that's how teachers were really in the 70s, whoa. Because that woman puts those young girls through psychological and physical abuse many times in that movie. And she's not the bad guy.
But here's the thing. It's kind of a just punishment.
Oh, absolutely.
Because what they did to Carrie...
Oh, yes. I mean, like, absolutely. As an onlooker, as a teacher, however, I would have been fired.
That's true. That was like 70s.
I'm sorry.
But that was like 70s, so...
True. I mean, yeah, very different time.
And I feel like kids are nicer now than they were in the 70s.
I think the bullying is less overt now. I think it is very much more... First of all, I think a lot of bullies are all talk now. They can... Yeah, it's all online. They can hide behind a screen so they can talk big.
Right.
It's not a lot of, like, physical things. It's a lot more mean names. And kids can get very mean nowadays, but it's not the same. Like, it's just very different types of bullying.
That's fair. That's very fair. I'm also not a child and don't spend time around them.
I do. Just for fun.
But I think Carrie's a very interesting exploration on religion, on parenthood in the 70s, on teen culture in the 70s. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that it comes from two, like, white dudes.
Yeah.
Stephen King obviously being the author of the book, Brian De Palma being the director. Yeah. But it feels, like, real.
It really does.
Like, they're actually paying attention, and they bring, like...
Yeah. I don't know
authenticity, is that the right word?
I agree. I don't know if you've ever been a teen girl, Austin.
I'm sorry to disappoint. I have not.
I have, and it's very real. I think from all perspectives, you know what I mean? It's very real from the perspective of Carrie, obviously, but I think even like Chris, the bully, in her eyes, of course what she does is particularly and exceptionally cruel, and I don't know how realistic that aspect of it is, but the idea of getting back at who you perceive to be somebody who causes you unfairness, that is something that teenagers do often, and it is something that they often get wrong. They often get the person who's like actually at fault incorrect, because ultimately in Chris's situation, the person who caused her to not be able to go to the prom is herself. Right. But she firmly believes that it is both Miss Collins and Carrie White who caused that incident for her.
And she can't take it out on Miss Collins because Miss Collins literally will slap the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And she does, and it's great.
She does, and it's really awesome. but I don't condone it as a teacher. I want to be very clear to my employers that I would never do that.
That's why we have the movies.
Correct.
Escapism at its finest.
But yeah, I think genuinely, I think the teen girls in this movie are very well written. And I think to some extent it's less about the teen boys because they kind of just exist as plot devices.
Yeah.
But they are also pretty realistic. I think Tommy in particular is a very well written character.
I think Tommy's a really interesting character.
Because he's so, particularly at the beginning, I mean, obviously his feelings kind of change and the way he reacts kind of changes. But he's so like, he's basically like, I'm doing this for Sue.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily like excited about it. It's not like he is very like, oh yeah, I think that's a great idea, Sue. Like, especially in the 70s, that was the earnest teen was often seen in like family movies, so it would have been very easy for Brian Palma to go that way. And I don't remember how he's written in the book, so I couldn't tell you. But it would have been very easy for him to go the whatever you say, Sue, golly, but he didn't. Yeah. And I like that choice. I think it's very like what a teen boy, even a teen boy with a good heart, would do.
And I think it's interesting because like he seems, I don't know if conflicted's the right word, but like you can tell he wants to go with Sue. He wants to go with his girlfriend, you know?
Right, exactly. Like he wants to go with his girlfriend. He's also, I mean, he's a teen boy and he's very popular. He's probably worried about his reputation.
He's thinking about that for sure. But despite that, he still takes Carrie to prom and he's like really nice.
I know, the
and
whole
genuine
time,
to her.
He, even before the prom, he is so, he's never once like, Carrie, I'm taking you because my girlfriend wants me to take you. Like, whatever.
When she confronts him, well, he's not giving her a choice. He has to confront him.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to leave. Like, he's at his doorstep. He's like, I'm not leaving until you say yes. And she's like, what the fuck? She doesn't say that, but she says that basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally, she goes, why me? Why, you know? And instead of saying, because my girlfriend asked me to, he says, because you liked my poem. Yeah. That's genuine.
It's real. And, like, it's something that I think shows his changing feelings for Carrie throughout. We never really
I don't think he, like, develops feelings.
No, I don't.
But he appreciates her.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see when he kisses her and are like, oh yeah, like he's developed feelings for her. And I don't necessarily agree. I don't think that's true. I think that was
just like a friendly.
Yeah, I really think it was like we're
on
a
prom,
date.
Yeah.
But I do think he throughout the story recognizes that not everything is as it seems with her. Especially when he gets to her house and he can hear her mom in the background. And everybody in the town, it's very well implied that everybody in the town knows Margaret White and knows who she is. And I think he realizes, like, okay, Carrie is not just some weird girl who's weird for the sake of being weird. She is a victim.
Right. And he does, I think, a really good job of just being a good dude. He opens the door for her when she's having a really nice moment with Miss Collins, the gym teacher, and gives her a hug. He comes back and he's playful. He's being playful. He's like, I don't want to see you hugging any guys like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
he's being a sweet dude.
He really gives her, like, I think there's obviously an implication that he decided, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give her the best damn, like, prom experience I can. Right. Stereotypical prom experience. Let's vote for ourselves for homecoming court. Let's dance. Let's me open the door for you. No, you can't be nervous because everything's going to be fine. We're going to have a great time no matter what. Like, very much devotes himself to, like, making Carrie feel important.
The shot when they are kind of talking they're dancing and they're talking on the dance floor and it slowly starts spinning faster and faster and faster. That was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that did a very good job of, like, visualizing kind of, like, how prom sweeps you up in the moment. Yeah. Because they're opening up to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's a really great moment, I think.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes you... I think how fast-paced the ending of the movie is really is really masterful in my opinion, because you know it's a horror movie. You know something's about to break bad. You know things are going to go south. But you're like, can't we just stay in this moment forever? Like Carrie and Tommy and Sue can just like be best friends and ride off into the sunset together, and nobody has to get hurt. We can all just leave Margaret in the prayer closet and just that's the end. And that doesn't happen. And I wish it did, but it doesn't.
It's one of those movies where no matter how many times you rewatch it, you have that, like, let's just change the ending this time. Let's just do something different this time.
Right. Like, what if it doesn't happen this time? What if we don't do that?
Right. Exactly. And I think I think those first 2 acts leading up to the prom scene is just, it's a masterful setup. And then the prom scene is just great cinema. I want to take a little break because I want to ask you, what is like your personal history with Carrie?
So my personal history with Carrie, I watched this movie for the first time in college. You're going to find that that's a lot of my answers. But I did. And I just remember identifying with Carrie White so much. I was raised in not the same thing. It's not the same environment, but I was raised in a pretty religious environment. A lot of restrictions, not necessarily by my own family, but by the church that I was raised in. And I just remember feeling a lot like Carrie in that there were a lot of, not necessarily about my own body, but there were a lot of references that I didn't necessarily understand because I wasn't allowed to consume that media. There were a lot of things that I couldn't necessarily do without like having a really long conversation about whether or not it was going to be a good thing for my, spiritual journey. And so I remember just seeing this movie for the first time and just being so heartbroken for Carrie because of that. Because it was there was part of me that was screaming out like, why don't you guys get it? Like, why don't you get that it's not her fault that she's like this? But obviously, like, now I'm an adult and I'm like, yeah, these are teenagers. That's why. But especially as an adult who like works with teenagers, they don't know a lot. They don't think things through a lot. And so I think, I've been able to definitely reconcile that as like an adult, but I definitely remember that feeling when I was young, like 19. So.
For sure. That's still teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you?
My personal history with Carrie is it's one of the more important horror movies for my being. I'll say growing up, there were like 3 movies I saw that really traumatized me when I was little. Carrie is one of them. Because Carrie was one of those movies where it's not like I watched Carrie, but Carrie would be on cable television a lot. And my mom likes horror movies, so it would be on whenever it was on. So Carrie and Amityville Horror are the 2 movies I remember from this scenario where, like, I don't know, I'll be playing Lego dinosaurs, and then I'll walk over to the other room, and it's the prom scene, and it's like, and then I would, be traumatized. And then I've loved it because of that. I mean, Carrie was one of those movies that scared me off from horror movies for a long time. And now that I'm into horror, I think back of those horrifying memories more fondly now.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
They made me who I am. And, like, rewatching Carrie yesterday, I was thinking how, like, I think, subconsciously, I put a lot of Carrie into my short film, The Blood Witch.
Yeah, you can definitely see the influence there.
When I was making that film, I was thinking Insidious.
Fair.
But I do, now when I see it, I'm like, oh, there's Carrie in this too. Yeah, and I think that was subconscious, because I did not once think of Carrie consciously during that particular film. But now, rewatch it, I was like, oh shit, it's totally there.
Side note, if you guys haven't seen Austin Torres' film, The Blood Wish, you absolutely should go watch that.
Thank you.
It's killer.
Hot take, I think Carrie is an underrated horror film. And it's considered one of the greatest horror films ever. But I think it gets overshadowed by other movies that it shares, what's the word I'm looking for? Shares, like, whatever with. What am I thinking of? English teacher, help me.
Shares accolades with, shares
Maybe?
the stage with.
Okay. So, like, when I think of 70s horror, I think of Alien and Jaws and
Yeah.
Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist, and see how it's like takes a little bit for me to get to Carrie, you know?
Yeah. I definitely feel like, because especially with particularly 70s horror, and this is not going to make sense because this is about a young girl with telekinesis who like kills everybody in her path, but I feel like because a lot of the other horror movies from the 70s in particular are very sensationalized, this one almost takes a back seat because for 95% of the movie it's very tame and it's very realistic. It is not like giant fish is killing everybody. It is like, this girl has a lot of problems, and like the horror comes from the bullying that she endures and the abuse she endures at the hands of her mother and that kind of stuff. My God, we really haven't even gotten to Mommy March part of this episode, but that's okay. And more and then like, yeah, she has this cool kind of telekinesis thing that doesn't really manifest in a big way until the end of the movie. And so I think that like because of that, it tends to take a back seat due to more like sensationalized flicks.
I guess it is a slow burn, but it don't feel like a slow burn.
No, absolutely not. Because there is true horror through the rest of the movie. It's just realistic horror.
Right, yeah. And then, you know, it's a Stephen King film, adaptation, I should say. I feel like it's overshadowed by other King properties. Like The Shining will probably be his most famous, most iconic film.
Right.
The Shawshank Redemption is Stephen King. I'm literally wearing Pennywise socks right now, so Misery, I think people gravitate towards. I think Misery and Pet Sematary are more famous than Carrie.
Yeah, I agree.
But
at least in terms of connections to Stephen King.
Or just in like film famousness. And it depends. Like, I've known Carrie all my life. Well, I should say more like the first time I saw it was like it's on TV when I was like 6 or 7. So I've pretty much known Carrie all my life. But like, I don't know. I just think it gets overshadowed by like other 70s films or other Stephen King adaptations. But it is one of the greats.
Agree.
I'm just going to say it. I would say, for me, top 3 Stephen King adaptation.
Fair. All right, should we dive into Margaret?
What a woman. Derogatory.
Derogatory. Yeah. There's so much of Carrie's story, especially early, that is so stereotypical abuse. The whole idea that, like, the first scene we see with Margaret and Carrie, it's not the first scene we see of them individually, but with both of them, is Carrie coming in and being like, you should have told me, Mama. Like, why am I going through this? Her mother is just like immediately like accusing her of some great sin.
She's saying like something, and I forget what she says. Like, the first sin in the garden was committed by Eve or something like that. And she's like, say it, Carrie. No, Mama. No.
Yeah.
Mama. Sissy Spacek's really good.
She's amazing.
And Billie Piper, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That, I gotta look this up, but I'm pretty sure she was nominated for an Academy Award for this film.
I believe you.
Which is insane, because this is a horror movie.
Yeah.
Horror don't get its flowers too often.
That wasn't happening.
I'm looking it up, folks. Are you looking it up too?
I was.
Yeah, both Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie were nominated for Oscars. And no other nominations, which is insane.
Yeah.
Considering the cinematography.
Right, but it's not insane considering the fact that it's a horror movie.
Yeah, but like Nosferatu got a cinematography. Well deserved.
This
you
is
haven't
2025.
seen it yet. True.
No, but I think, oh my gosh, speaking of the cinematography, the crucifixes and the Christ imagery, especially in the closet, when she gets locked in there and you just see the shadow of the crucifix with Jesus and his eye whites, and he's just like looking up as if he's like
the most creepy doll ever.
Angry at somebody.
Yeah.
Oh God. Ugh. Terrifying. Yeah. And then like when that closet scene is just horrific. And then like her mother is sewing so calmly when she comes out finally, and she's forced to say thank you. It makes me sick to my stomach. Oh my goodness. Like, just She's forced to say thank you for letting her out of the closet when the reason she was being put in the closet is because she started her period.
Right.
Like,
Something she knew nothing about.
She didn't know. She had no idea. And no offense, but Carrie is not well liked at school. She is not tempting the boys.
Right.
She is being mocked.
And then, like, she's accusing her of sinning. And it's like, I didn't sin. I didn't do it, you know?
I didn't do anything, yeah.
So, Margaret. What are we going to do with her?
It's really interesting to me. The other thing is she goes around town, like, proselytizing to all the other families in town, but nobody else in town, like, thinks to be worried or concerned about her or Carrie or anything else. And I find that really interesting in terms of the parents of the community, because this seems like it's a tight-knit community.
Yes, but it's also, like, from my understanding, a smaller American suburb type of community, which tends to be a bit more conservative, a bit more, I protect my own, and that's
fair.
it.
Yeah.
And, like, these conservative communities tend to be a bit more isolated in that sense. Yeah. Especially, like, a Margaret White, extremely religious conservative type.
Right. It is interesting to me that we never see Margaret with any type of community.
Right.
Which is fascinating because that's one of the big things with a lot of religion, specifically Christian religion, is you need to be in the church. You need to be, going to services. You need to be with other believers. And it's implied that she does, but it's just, we never see her with anybody.
So Margaret is the first of what I think is a popular Stephen King character archetype. And maybe it's not just a Stephen King character archetype, but I associate it with him probably because of The Mist. But like the super arrogant, I'm better than everyone else type of female religious leader. I'm thinking of what's her name in The Mist.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of what's her name, Midnight Mass. And I'm sure there are male versions of this trope, but those are the three characters I'm thinking of.
Right.
You ever see Silver Bullet?
No.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil it then. But anyways, I feel like there are more examples, but yeah, there in like Midnight Mass being Mike Flanagan is very King inspired. So even though that's not a King character, I still put that under that like King, at least King inspired,
Trope, yeah.
Tropes. Yeah, thank you. So Margaret White might be the first of this character archetype, which we've seen several times since. And in this case, it's like she's so... And it's not like she's so religious. It's like she's so arrogant about it.
Yes.
That she ostracized herself from
the rest of the community.
The religious community, too,
Yeah.
You know it's bad when, like, other religious people are like, oh, shit, you're crazy.
Yeah, you're insane. Yeah, I mean, she definitely has a lot of delusions about herself and the way that her life has gone down in terms of the family unit. I guess we're kind of...
That one monologue she has before Carrie goes to prom.
Yeah.
What'd she say? It's similar to a moment we'll talk about next week on the film next week.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
I should have killed you when you were born, or something like that.
That's after.
Oh, after the prom.
After the prom. Yeah.
I promise I watched this movie last night.
I believe you. So there's two kind of big monologues. The first one is before the prom, and it is when Carrie is very adamant when she is like, Tommy has asked me to go to the prom. I've said yes, I'm going. Yeah. And she is like, that's when we learn the backstory about her father.
Oh, and like, I liked sinning or something like she's...
No, different.
Is that a different monologue?
That's the one after the prom. It's okay.
That's what's stuck in my head.
I know what you're talking about.
I remember when she sees Carrie's dress, and Carrie looks so beautiful, and she goes, I can see your dirty pillows.
Yeah.
They're called breasts, mama.
That was so crazy. Dirty Pillows is crazy. Anyway, that's not the point.
That's the name of my band.
But the part that I'm talking about is when she's like, your father was carried by the devil, and she's like, no, he left.
Everyone knows. And she says everyone knows that.
Everyone knows he left. Like, yeah. And yeah, so she starts to rebel a little bit, and it's really nothing rebellious. She's not drinking, she's not smoking, she's going to the prom.
Right.
She's going to a school, like, sponsored event with chaperones. And then, yeah, she, like, when she's getting ready, she says the dirty pillows thing. She starts hurting herself. She starts, like, pulling her own hair and fake crying.
Right.
And
which is like a common abuse tactic.
Very much so. It's very much an abuse tactic. It is so manipulative. It is, you know, this garnering sympathy so that Carrie has to go from being the victim to immediately being the comforter, which is very common for abusers, where they will, especially, you know, we'll talk more about, trust me, during this horror movie podcast, we will talk plenty about male abusers, but especially female abusers, because they don't have the intimidation factor.
Right.
They'll go for the sympathy. They will hurt themselves or start crying or be like, wow, you make me feel so bad because of X, Y, and Z. And then the abused, like the victim, has to go and be the comforter.
Right.
And that happens after prom 2 in the speech that you were talking about.
Right. Where she's like, I never want. What'd she say?
She said, I should have killed myself.
That's it. And I was like, oh, shit.
And what kills me, what stabs me in the heart, is that Carrie walks in covered in blood.
Yeah.
Well, no, she's not covered in blood at that point because she has already washed herself.
But when she was covered in blood and walking to her her bath, there's that really, like, creepy moment where Margaret is just hiding there and Carrie doesn't notice.
Yeah.
That's a classic horror movie.
She, first of all, it's just a symptom of abuse that Carrie doesn't run in and go, Mom, they covered me in pig's blood and it's all fucked up now. The fact that she goes and she just has to meticulously take care of it herself because she knows her mom will freak out. And then she comes in and she just says, hold me, Mama. Hold me.
Right.
And her mom goes, I should have killed myself.
Margaret's the worst.
She is just horrific. I mean, there is a lot of parallels to Psycho in this movie. And I told you guys like several times in the last episode that I would talk about Psycho during this episode. And one of the things that I think that this really shows is that this very similar archetype of this mother. It's not necessarily the mother, Norma Bates, is not necessarily as overtly religious, but she's very much the same morally. Like, girls are tramps, like, you know, you must be like, stay away from the opposite sex, like you need to be in this house and just like that's it. And it shows really the gender gap between how a girl would be handled raised by a mother like that versus a boy is raised by a mother like that.
Right.
A boy is raised very like, you stay away from those girls, they're all evil, blah 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 blah. And girl, perhaps even more insidiously, is like, no, you are the sinner, you are the problem.
Right.
Even if she doesn't do anything,
which Carrie didn't. The
other little Easter egg in this one is that in the Carrie movie, the high school is Bates High School.
What?
Yup. Named after Norman and Norma, I suppose, but yeah.
And this is a very Alfred Hitchcock inspired film.
Yes.
The way, like,
the
cinematography, the camera movement. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. There's this amazing shot in the prom scene that just kind of follows and shows us where every single character is, and it just kind of tracks through. I forget where it starts off exactly, but I believe it starts off with Norma and the other dude stealing or rigging the votes for Crown King and Queen, and then it goes through, and then we track down and we see Chris and Billy under the stairs with the rope, and then it follows the rope, and then we see Sue come in, and we keep following the rope, and we go up and up, and we're craning up. We got to be on a crane at this point. Go up and up and up, and we follow the rope to the bucket, and then we turn a little bit and we zoom in on Carrie and Tommy, and then they get announced winners of the Prom King and Queen, and all of this is in one shot.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And then the slow-mo scene directly after that, where they go up, and then Sue is trying to get Chris and Billy out from under the stairs, but then Miss Collins comes in and thinks that she's like messing with Tommy, so she like pulls her out. Like that whole scene is so, and like the whole time you're like screaming at Miss Collins because you're like, no, please,
that's not the problem.
That's not. Like, look at where
Right.
she's looking. But anyway.
Oh my goodness. And there's this great shot of Nancy Allen's lips. Like, kind of, she's licking her lips. Like, she knows exactly what she's about to do.
Yeah.
The bully.
Yes.
The bully. And, holy shit. It's like, the prom scene in this movie is peak cinema.
It's so good.
To steal a phrase from my Gen Z friends.
Before we get too into the prom scene, because I would like to talk about that.
Hell yeah.
I want to really highlight the contrast of Carrie's relationship with her mom with Carrie's motherly relationship that she has with Miss Collins.
Yeah.
Miss Collins really...
I fucking love Miss Collins.
She's amazing. She really treats her like her own. I mean, like, even the opening scene, yes, she comes in and she just smacks her. And it's very harsh.
She's a little slap happy.
Well, yes. I mean, she, especially as a teacher, again, in a public school. But whatever. I don't think they were hitting them that much in the 70s.
She was.
She was.
Someone needs to make an edit of, like, her smacking all these teenagers and put, like, ludicrous, move, bitch, get out the way.
But she slaps her, and it almost shows a level of, like, comfort that Carrie has with her, because Carrie doesn't take it as, like, the abuse that Chris does. She takes it as, like, okay, Miss Collins would not be, like, in my face doing this if I wasn't safe. I'm okay. She's going to take care of me. And then, oh my gosh, the scene in the mirror just breaks my heart the whole time.
Oh, when she's telling her how pretty she is.
How pretty she is.
And your cheekbones and your hair.
And your hair. And it's like, that's such a mother-daughter moment. Like, that's something I remember my mom doing when I was a teenager. And I was like, I look so ugly. I look so whatever, blah, 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 blah. My mom would, like, sit me down in front of the mirror and be like, no, look at yourself. Look at these beautiful features you have. And that's exactly, like...
And Carrie doesn't get that from her own mother.
No, of course
not. She gets it from the gym teacher. Right.
And then, like, Miss Collins immediately being like, all right, this is going to be the worst detention of your life because you messed with Carrie.
And she understands how fucked up.
Right.
And she tells him, I don't think you guys get how fucked up what you guys did was.
And then, like, immediately, the way that she handles Tommy asking Carrie to the prom, I think is so good. Because with Carrie, she's just like, well, how do you know he was asking you as a joke and blah, blah, blah. And then and then she, like... She sits Sue and Tommy down, and she's like, absolutely fucking not, you guys.
Right.
Like,
right, exactly.
And I think that was so well done. And then, obviously, the scene at the prom where she's, like, sitting with her, and then she gives her the hug and everything. Yeah. Well, I think... That's what makes the ending with her, like, hallucination so heartbreaking, because it starts with Miss Collins. Well, no, it starts with Norma, but, like,
that's the
hallucination is Miss
because she's, like, remembering, because it's, like, Norma's the only one laughing, and maybe one other kid. Yeah. But she's imagining all of them laughing, when really it was just Norma and maybe some other... Yeah. Because, like, the photographer kid's like, huh? Yeah. But when she's hallucinating, he's laughing, you know? Mm-hmm. And, like, she looks at the principal, and she's remember, you can come in, Cassie. Or, you can go home, Cassie. Mm-hmm. And Miss Collins like, it's Carrie, motherfucker. She didn't say that, but, like... But, yeah. And that, not to jump all over the film, but then she looks at Miss Collins and just like, you can trust me, Carrie. That's what, they're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you. That was great sound design in that scene.
It's terrifying. I mean, it's just the whole time, because she's,
and then the kaleidoscope camera.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, like, it makes the ending scene, again, not to jump all over the place, but it makes the ending scene with her mother so heartbreaking, because she goes home, the whole time she's going home, she's like, my mom was right. My mom was right. My mom was right. That is, like, exactly what happened. She was correct. I'm going home and I'm never leaving. And she just wanted to go home and be consoled by her mother, and probably even say, like, you were right. I'm not doing anything like that again. Like, I need you to help me get out of this. And her mom was immediately just like, you were a mistake.
Literally stabs her in the back.
Yeah. And oh my god.
And then she's scary.
Yeah, she's terrifying.
Like when she, like that low angle shot and she's like kind of smiling as she's waving that knife around. Mm-hmm. That's scary.
Yeah, she's really in like a spiritual psychosis of like, this is the right thing. And like the fact that the end of the movie really has a parallel of her mother and like Christ imagery. Yeah. She is like nailed, with her arms outstretched with the knives. And even it pans to like the crucifix that they have with the arrows stuck in her stomach. So it looks like the knives that she has. It's very interesting.
And in this scene, she's kind of like orgasming.
Yeah.
because of the pain, and it's like, yeah, she's
a fucked up lady.
Right. Yeah. And not just sadistic. She just loves pain, both inflicting and receiving.
Yeah.
Insane. Yeah. Insane in the membrane.
True.
But I do want to say about Miss Collins real quick before I forget. Slipknot 2007. I think it's baller how Miss Collins, like from the get-go, in the scene with the principal, he's just like, Cassie, you can come in. And it's like, it's Carrie. Bruh, it's Carrie. And like, she's a real one.
She's like, I mean, again, I know what I said at the beginning of the episode about her being way too violent. She's a great teacher.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
realistically.
she's the only one. Her and to a certain extent, Sue and Tommy are the only ones that actually give a fuck about Carrie.
Yeah.
Not her own mom.
No.
Definitely not the principal, because I said earlier how Carrie's kind of like condemning authority in a sense.
Yeah.
The film is, not the character, but the film. Miss Collins is the only authority figure. But you can't have just one, you know. Like, the principal don't give a shit.
Right.
Principal can't even say what her name is.
Yeah.
And then we talked at length about her mommy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carrie. 1976.
Yeah. In terms of like how this impacted the greater culture, we've definitely talked about a lot of it already, but bringing Stephen King into the mainstream.
Yeah, because it was his first book.
Mm-hmm.
And then this movie just blew up the book even more, I think.
Yeah. It also, like, just in cinema and in pop culture in general,
yeah,
it's part of the zeitgeist for a couple different reasons. I mean, obviously, the actual, like, her covered in blood, like Carrie style.
That imagery.
I watched that movie and then I went to bed that night and read my rom-com book. My book that is a romantic comedy book.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a Carrie reference in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, this is everywhere.
So,
and it really is.
Is Carrie top 5 prom movie?
Yes.
Okay.
In my humble opinion.
Well, I can't think of other prom movies. Oh, 21 Jump Street.
Prom?
Is it better than Carrie?
No.
I love that movie, but I don't think it's better than Carrie.
Absolutely not.
Tragedy Girls has a prom scene, but
true.
Great movie.
Jennifer's Body.
Not
is that the prom?
I don't remember.
Or is it just a different school dance?
I don't remember.
Whatever.
But it's very Carrie inspired.
Yeah.
Is Jennifer's Body better than Carrie?
I don't think so, but I think it's very close.
It's not a fair question.
I think
it's not a fair question.
In my personal opinion, like I would probably reach for Jennifer's Body first, but sure. I think in terms of like objectivity, no, because Carrie is Carrie.
Right.
But the other like way it's really popular, it popularized the like hand coming out of the dirt thing.
It did,
in, like,
didn't it?
Every zombie movie. It kind of started with Deliverance, but like this is the one that everybody remembers.
Well, like Friday the 13th jump scare at then, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Popularized that too.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The nightmare fake out ending. I think I Know What You Did Last Summer did that.
I literally have that in my notes. Alice's Nightmare Friday the 13th.
See?
Of,
yeah. Yeah. I remember I was watching a making of or something about Friday the 13th. Tom Savini was talking. Maybe I was watching a Tom Savini interview, and he was saying how, like, he was saying it was his idea to do that in Friday. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, cool. And he goes, and someone was like, would that work? And he's just like, it worked in Carrie.
Fair.
That moment in Carrie's so fucking good.
Yeah.
And the score at that moment, it rocks so hard.
I have a lot of thoughts about the score, which we'll talk about when we get to our superlatives, but yeah.
Such a good ending. One of the best endings in horror, I think.
I was going to say, it's probably one of the first ones that I consciously remember watching that didn't just have like a happy-ish ending. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, a lot of horror movies don't have the most perfect happy ending, but a lot of them have like a happy for now. You know what I mean? Like, we escaped the killer, and yeah, some of our friends didn't, but we've got somebody surviving.
Well, like Jaws, which came out the year before,
probably
has the happiest horror movie there is.
Right.
Like, one of the guys who probably should have died comes back, and they're, like, having a chuckle as they're swimming back. Mm-hmm. Like, homie, a third of your group has died.
Right. Like, I don't know that we're super happy, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, he was an asshole, but he was still a dude.
Yeah.
But no, Carrie is incredibly bleak, I think. Like, even The Exorcist kind of has like a bittersweet ending, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like pure bleak tragedy.
Yeah.
The Shining has like, I think film-wise, Carrie is more bleak than The Shining.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. There's one surviving member of who experienced the tragedy, and she, at the very least, has extreme PTSD. At the most, goes insane, which I believe in the
She's
sequels,
never doing the right thing again.
I was going to say, I believe in accordance with the sequels, she does go insane. She's institutionalized.
I have to out myself. I've never seen The Rage Carrie 2.
Oh. I have, but it's,
I hear it's
again, been a very
pretty
long
cool.
time. So, do you mind me telling you? It's basic plot. It's not spoilers, but
Yeah, shoot.
so it centers Sue Snell, who comes back as a 36-year-old woman to Bates High School and becomes a guidance counselor.
That's really cool.
It's awesome. But yeah, I definitely.
Is it still Amy Irving?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Let us know in the comments, peeps.
We won't even Google it. We'll wait until you tell us.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic film. Without it, we don't get Stephen King, really.
Yeah.
Maybe we get him eventually. That man has, like, the work ethic.
Tons, yeah.
Like, he was going to make it eventually. But, like, do we get The Shining if Carrie isn't a success?
Right.
You know, do we get... What was that insane run? Like, Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Stand, The Shining. Pet Sematary is a little later of what I'm thinking. But I know, like, Christine, Cujo, and The Dead Zone, all those movies came out in the same year.
Right.
Christine, book and movie came out in the same year.
He's a...
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, like, just that early 80s. I think going from Carrie to It, that's... stretch. I think Silver Bullet might be in there.
Yeah.
And then he didn't fall off, but I do think like the drugs really impacted him.
Well, yeah.
Mid to late
that
80s.
Would do it.
But that still brought out Pet Sematary and Misery. I think Misery might have been a little later.
He's always been kind of a weird guy, but yeah.
Complimentary.
Yeah.
I think Carrie is crucial to Stephen King's success. Yeah, iconic high school movie. While I do think it gets overshadowed by other 70s films and other Stephen King adaptations, everyone, like, you put a girl, cover her in blood, people are going to be like, that's Carrie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
Yes, I did.
Oh, yeah, we saw it together.
Yes, we did.
The Scarlet Witch is, like, covered in Ultron oil.
Yeah.
But... it's like, that's Carrie.
Everybody's
that's a Carrie
like,
reference.
Oh, it's Carrie. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still referencing Carrie.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I mean, the book that I was talking about that I read, that came out this year, or last year, 2024. So.
Yeah. So.
It's everywhere.
Iconic to the culture. Iconic to the culture.
Iconic to the culture.
We love Carrie in this house.
Are we ready for superlatives?
First, yes. Sorry. I thought I had something there.
All right. So who would you save?
Who would I save?
Yeah.
I would save, if I had to save a character, I would go in, I would take Carrie White, I would bitch slap Margaret White, and I would put Carrie into Miss Collins' care.
Like a Matilda situation.
Sure.
Is Matilda just Carrie, but with a happy ending?
Sure.
I'm not joking. Is that like a real thing? Is that why Matilda was written? I don't know which one was written first. I don't know what. I have no concept of time with Roald Dahl. Have you ever seen Matilda?
I know I've seen Matilda, but I don't remember it at all.
So Matilda is about a little girl with telekinesis.
I can see the little girl's face in my head.
Whose parents are abusive, and at the end she ends up living with her elementary school teacher.
The only thing I remember, spoilers, the only thing I remember about that movie, because I want to say the last time I saw it, I was like fucking 4 years old.
Right. Is it the cake?
No, I remember like, and this might not even be from Matilda, but I remember like this big mean woman taking this little girl by the ponytails and like swinging her around and throwing her across like the schoolyard.
That's Miss Trunchbull. She's the principal.
Is that Matilda?
Yeah.
Then yeah, I've seen Matilda, but that's the only part I remember.
Anyway.
I was terrified that would happen to me. I didn't even have long hair.
You were Terrifier too? Sorry. It's your turn to ask me who I would save.
Who would you save?
I would save Miss Collins.
You were so excited.
I love her, and I think she deserves better. And it's not her fault. It's not Carrie's fault that
she got one of the more brutal deaths too.
But like she like begging for her life for Carrie. Her last moments were probably like should have let her stay in the shower. Should have let her just scream.
Yep. And then
yeah.
and she gets fucking like, I always imagined she was bisected in that moment. I think she was just crushed.
I think she was bisected.
But yeah, that's fucking gnarly.
Shouts out, like, special honorable mentions to Tommy, though.
Yeah, Tommy's a bro.
Tommy didn't deserve that. He didn't even, like, die from Carrie.
No.
The bucket just fell on him and he died.
What the fuck?
Which I, like, didn't even really register until this time through watching it. I was like, oh my god, Tommy, like...
It's unrealistic.
Carrie didn't even do this.
He had all that hair.
I know, you'd think it would have cushioned some of it.
Yeah, but he died from that.
Got a really beautiful
He wasn't
throat.
like... He didn't die from the fire.
No.
Like, he died before that.
Yeah, he died before she started telekinesis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which, like,
crazy.
that might... If you're going to be in that situation, that might be the best way to go.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to see all the... And, you know...
Yeah. He really got the most peaceful death.
Right. And didn't get any of the trauma.
True.
But yeah, that seems wild.
Mm-hmm.
The next superlative. What was your favorite scare?
My favorite scare. Again, I feel like I keep going for the most iconic parts, but it is the only like jump scare in the movie, really. It's the graveyard scene. I think there is something so powerful about the fact that we see Sue Snell, who, Sue, the most selfless child in this entire movie. She gives up her boyfriend for prom. She goes to these detentions diligently. She doesn't even really make fun of Carrie at the beginning. She's just kind of laughing along, which is of course not right, but she really owns up to that. And then she comes and Carrie, who's killed all of her friends and her boyfriend, she comes and lays flowers on her grave. And then, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, God, poor girl. But amazing timing.
Yeah.
Like, so
and then
good.
the music there. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, so it rocks.
Yeah.
Fucking slaps. That's the technical term, by the way.
It bangs.
I think my favorite scare, I would have to go with just the entire prom scene massacre. Mm-hmm. Because that's the part that scared me when I was a kid.
And it's beautifully shot.
And like that drone and the split screens happening and just so much mayhem. It was intense for 6 or 7 year old Austin.
Yeah.
And like Sissy Spacek's eyes.
I mean, that's like
holy
intense
shit.
for 27-year-old Anneliese. Like, I have seen that movie more than once and I'm still like, and yes, it's like dated in terms of like, it's a 70s movie, but oh my God. The way her eyes, she becomes Carrie White, bent on revenge in that moment, and it's insane.
No, it's an incredible scene. I have to go with it because it still holds up too. It's still very intense.
Yes.
And I watch my fair share of horror movies. Like, I don't get unnerved too often anymore. But watching that, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. There's just so much.
Right.
So, it is time to give our Tony Todd Award for Movie MVP. Who is your winner for this week?
I changed it, but
The fuck?
So when you pitched this award to me, I didn't understand it.
Oh no.
I'm not gonna lie. I understood who Tony Todd was, but I never really realized that what you were saying was like the cast / crew member / like, you know, person
It could be character.
Involved. It could be character.
Yeah.
That's true. But now that I've realized the category has been broadened to that, I'm like, oh, well, then I have an answer. And the answer is Sissy Spacek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Iconic.
I mean, again, like, stereotypical, but, like, she's just so good. She is so, first of all, just kind of like, oh my God, what's his name? Norman Bates. What's the actor?
Anthony Perkins.
Anthony Perkins.
Yeah, because I said Anthony Perkins last week.
Just like Anthony Perkins, she does so good playing both ends of the spectrum. She does so beautifully playing this very victimized young girl, but also this very terrifying villain when the switch happens. And yeah, she's great.
I think that's a great pick. I was thinking about picking Spacey Sissick.
Spacey Sissick.
I did not do that on purpose, but when I started it and I realized halfway through what I was saying and I just committed.
Yeah.
Sissy Spacek, I thought about picking her because, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have to give my flowers this week to Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
Because everything about this movie is immaculate. And just like the cinematography is, people can't see this because we're not recording video, but I did a chef's kiss. Lisa can confirm.
It was a chef's kiss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hell
so,
yeah.
Like, if you can't see the chef's kiss, but it sounds like you kissed the mic a little.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Getting intimate with the mic.
The cinematography, the way all the performers in this are great, So
there's not a wrong answer for this one, to be honest.
No, really, but I'm going to give the flowers to Brian De Palma for just putting everyone in the best position to do their very best work. And that's why this movie is so good. And then also there are like 9 different split diopter shots. Mm-hmm. And it's so fucking cool. And for people who don't know what a split diopter shot is, it is when, do you know what it is?
Nope.
Okay, so
I was gonna pretend like I didn't until you asked me.
So you know how like a camera's in focus, right?
Yes.
Where it's super clear, that's focus. There's deep and shallow focus. Mm-hmm. Deep focus where it's like more things can be in focus. You can see more. You'll see deep focus in like when you're watching the sports game, right? Whereas shallow focus, that tends to be a bit more artsier. That's where like a lot of times your subject is in frame and the background is very blurry. Yeah. You see that in a lot of like indie movies and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it is very pretty, So
It would ruin sports, though.
it would. It would ruin sports. Exactly. Like
it's just Patrick Mahomes and glistening HD and everyone else.
Right. You
blurry.
can't see who he's throwing to. Right. But but a split diopter shot, what that essentially does is it splits like the lens. So you can have 2 things in focus at once. So you can have that crisp, shallow focus, but you don't have to So and you can identify it because there'll be like a line of unfocus, usually vertical, but Carrie has a bunch of them.
I just looked it up.
Yeah.
Just to see what you were talking about. And literally all of the Google images are like split diopters and Carrie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess I'll just bring up an example that I'm seeing for anybody who's listening who might not understand. One of the most prominent ones that I'm seeing is the scene in the classroom when they're reading Tommy's poem. And it's very clear on Tommy, and then it's very clear on Carrie in the background, and you can see both of their individual facial reactions.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of these type of shots in Carrie, and a lot in Brian De Palma's work as well. Other movies I can think of off the top of my head. Jaws has a bunch of great split diopters. There's a few in Evil Dead Rise, which we might talk about. Ooh, spoilies.
Intense.
Spoilies, but split diopter shots are pretty cool.
Yep.
They're really a 70s kind of film auteur staple, but I think they're starting to make a little bit of a comeback. Terrifier 3 had one. And I was like, oh shit.
Interesting. Yeah.
Art the Clown has money.
I definitely feel like now that I'm looking at these shops and I know what you're talking about, I feel like this is a very retro way to do it, but it's very cool.
Kind of like how zooms are very 70s.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of zooms anymore.
Like the scene with the detention.
Yeah.
Where she's in the foreground and the girls are in the background and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Is the score better than Jaws?
No. But I was listening to the score today, like at work. Mm-hmm. It's a really good score. Yeah. Last week's episode, I was kind of saying well, it's basically Psycho. I rewatched the movie and I'm listening to it. I was a bit unfair. I was a bit harsh in that statement. It's still very Psycho. At moments.
Yeah, I think the answer's no, which means more coming from me. But I do think that something that this movie does that Psycho didn't, and it might just be the product of the time, the difference between 60s and 70s movies, because there is a lot of like very smaller differences, but especially since this is very mid 70s, that's 1960. One thing I think that this movie does that Psycho doesn't, even though the intense like horror music is very Psycho, the idyllic, beautiful, like la 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 music that's in between those scenes that carries you from tense moment to tense moment is something that Psycho doesn't do. Psycho's pretty silent if it's not tense music.
Psycho's score is all dread.
Yeah.
With occasional violence.
Yes. And I think that that's really interesting that Carrie does that, because that's not something that a lot of movies do.
Right.
Movies will do that. I don't mean that it's unheard of, but I think that it is less common than just like dread music in the background and then louder dread music when bad things are happening to let you know that you should be ready. And,
right.
I especially the two scenes that I find the most beautifully, maybe not the most beautifully scored, but very beautifully scored, are the parallel scenes at the very beginning of the movie when she's in the shower, and then at the end when she's washing herself in the bath. They use very similar motifs in the movie, or in the music, but they're very different scenes tonally. Because in the first scene, she's almost seems euphoric. She's just like, it's not, even though she's like, yes, she's naked, she does not have clothes on. It's not really even sexual. It's just kind of like, she's just like having a moment of peace to herself until obviously, like, she starts her period.
Right.
And then at the end, it's very much the same eerily calming music. Like the calming music from the beginning becomes eerie because of the fact that she is washing this pig's blood off of her hands and also washing like the metaphorical sin off of her hands. And I find the way that the music was used to be very masterful.
I think Carrie, and I don't know if too many scores do this anymore, and Psycho didn't. And Psycho's still like one of the greats. Maybe because of the way Carrie is as a story, the music's allowed to be a bit like more musically diverse. So Carrie's theme is really pretty. Reminds me of Poltergeist a little bit, how Poltergeist has this beautiful main theme, but when it gets scary, it's atonal, it's violent. This film has a little bit of a rhythmic violence to it when it's not doing the drone.
Yeah.
Which normally I get annoyed by drones, just drone heavy scores, but this one does it super well. But I was listening to the score and like the songs at prom were original because they showed up on the score.
Yeah.
And I all my life I thought those were just like licensed songs.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I mean, like, I didn't know anything about them. I'd never heard them before.
Right.
I guess,
but I didn't think anything of them.
No.
They're
That's
good.
interesting.
They're great in the movie. But they came up in the score and like the music when like the boys are looking for tuxes. Like it's a very musically diverse score, and I think all elements. Some of it gets a little 70s hokey.
True.
But I think it's close to Jaws in the sense there's a lot of musical tones happening, but they work together to make a great score.
I will say, like, I remember having the conscious thought, I just looked up the title so that I would get it right, but I remember having conscious thought of the fact that one of the songs, the song that's playing when they're walking in and when they're dancing, I never dreamed someone could love you, or someone like you could love someone like me, that I remember being like, wow, they really picked a title that's like on the fucking nose. But I also didn't know this.
It was made for the movie.
Just look this up. It was performed by A.B. Irving's sister, and A.B. Irving is Sue Snell.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a great score. Is it better than Jaws? No.
No.
But I would say I would give the score like an 8 out of 10.
Fair.
Very, very good score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. I want to add another superlative. I forgot to do this for Psycho. Oop. But I also thought of it after we recorded that episode. But I want to add a new section. I call it a fine addition to my collection. Lisa, is this a film you would purchase for your physical media collection?
This is a film that I would purchase for my physical media collection. I think, I think this has a lot of high rewatchability because there's so much to pay attention to. I mean, we've been talking for, how long have we been talking, producer Jeremy? An hour and 22 minutes about Carrie.
We've been talking about Carrie for as long as Carrie is a movie.
Yeah. And not
Almost.
only...
We have like 15 minutes to go.
And if we really wanted to, we could keep talking.
We could,
about
yeah.
Carrie. You know what I mean? And we have before. We were talking about this before we started recording, but every single episode that we've done together, I believe, we have mentioned Carrie at least once. You've talked about Carrie on the podcast separate to us talking about Carrie. So, yeah, I think this is a movie that just has so much meat to it to go back to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that I would repurchase it. So the way that I'm going to do this question is a little bit different. I don't have as much physical media as Austin does. So a fine addition to your collection is going to be, when I ask Austin this question, it's going to be, do you already own this film?
I have it on both Blu-ray and 4K.
I'm not shocked.
And both of them are like different collector's editions.
Since we're here and we didn't do it last time, Psycho. Do you own Psycho?
I have it on Blu-ray.
Okay. I would also purchase Psycho. I don't think that will be the case for every single movie that we talk about, but I would, because I'm pretty highly selective about what I keep, but these two are definite. Like, they're classics. They have high rewatchability. I would absolutely purchase them.
I would say, just as a general rule of thumb, I mostly have Blu-rays. I do have quite a bit of 4Ks, but it's because that medium's newer.
Right.
There will be certain movies where I have them on both, and there's a handful of movies that I have on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K, and I think maybe 3 or 4 movies, which I guess is also a handful, that I have on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K.
That's amazing.
I know Jaws is one of them. I'm pretty sure E.T.'s one. And Jurassic Park should be one, but I don't know where my Jurassic Park VHS is. So, and Raiders.
That's fair. Yeah.
They're all Spielberg.
You are a Spielberg fan.
Very much so. Very much so. So, Carrie, that's a good movie.
It is a good movie, yes.
It's a great movie, actually.
That's all we keep.
Welcome to Would You Guy. Carrie's a good movie.
That it. It's funny. Last episode, we just, like, fucking annihilated Arbogast. And this movie has, like, the average character is 10 times a worse person than Arbogast.
I mean,
and we didn't tear into any of them.
Okay, listen.
That's the power of a bad name.
Arbogast, he got off kind of easy. He just, like, fell down some stairs and died. These guys,
he got stabbed the shit out of. What you mean?
Well, that's fair. But, like, he just, like, got stabbed and, like, blah, whatever. And then he was done. These guys got tortured and burned alive. I think they got it worse. So it's fine. I don't feel that bad that we're not going in on them.
But they're 10 times worse.
They're also teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. And none of them have a fucking dweeb name.
Like Arbogast.
Stephen King's really good at coming up with names.
True.
Like Sue Snell is a great name.
It really is. The alliteration's right there.
And it's like a name like, yeah, I probably went to high school with her.
Yeah.
So
Austin, would you die?
No. I'll
Why?
tell you why. I'm a 30-year-old man with no intention of going to prom. Oh, yeah, I use that twice. I use that, but in different circumstances.
Yeah.
It would be fucked up if I went to prom.
Yeah.
I am not a teacher. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like,
That's the end.
I just would not be in that scenario. Because that would be, like, fucking gross.
Fair.
Yeah, if you were, you maybe would deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Fair.
So I'm going to ask you, since, you're a teacher, socially acceptable, would you die?
Absolutely not. I refuse to chaperone the prom. I won't do it. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to National Lose Your Virginity Night for teenagers. I'm not doing that. That's not my job.
Yeah.
And that's it. I would not be there. I would be at home with my cats.
Watching Carrie.
Watching Carrie. And you know what? If I had a principal who is, luckily, I have a wonderful principal. But if I had a principal who just, like, refused to learn children's names, I would be like, you know what? He kind of deserves it, and I don't have to go to work on Mondays. So win-win for me.
I love it. So that is our episode on Carrie. I hope you guys like it. Let us know what you think. Interact with us on the socials. You can find us pretty much everywhere at Would You Die Show. You can follow me, Austin, at pretty much every social media as Austin M. Torres. I'm pretty sure they're all the same. I don't know. You guys let me know. But yeah, follow me on the Letterboxd. Follow us on like Insta and Blue Sky and all that fun stuff.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Liesa11, Liese 11. You can find me at Blue Sky at Whimsawillow, WHIMSI Willow. And then you can find me on Instagram at LiesePete, LIESEPETE.
So I would have already released the announcement video about every film we're doing this month, but should I give a hint of what people already know we're talking about next week?
Last episode we just announced it, but you absolutely can. I hated it. I hated it so bad. If you know, you know.
But yeah, we're talking about Hereditary. I think it's interesting because at this recording, I have not rewatched it. I've only seen the movie once, so.
I have only seen it once. I've seen it now 1.5 times because I didn't finish it.
Oh.
But I'm probably, now that we have a little bit more time, I might try to start it over and watch it again.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I saw this is one of the first horror movies that I saw in theaters.
Ooh.
Because again, I was a late bloomer when it came to horror.
That's an intense one.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk more about my history with that one, but it was an experience.
I'm excited to revisit it. I think it's time. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Austin Torres.
I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And that was Would You Die? Try Not to Die.